Welcome back, listeners. We're diving deep today. Yeah, it looks like we've got some fascinating excerpts from a book all about, well, the beginning, the biblical account of creation.
It's going to be a good one.
It is, always gets me thinking. I mean, this account, it's not just some ancient story, right?
Right.
It really sets the stage for understanding, like, who are we? Why are we here? What's this whole universe thing about, anyway?
Exactly. And this particular book, they really emphasize a literal 6-day creation, just like it's laid out in Genesis chapters 1 and 2.
Yeah, those chapters, they paint such a vivid picture, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. It's like watching this cosmic drama unfold. Each day, bam, something new. And it's described with this incredible imagery.
It's poetry, almost.
It is.
And the source material, they make a strong case for those days being literal 24-hour periods.
Oh, yeah, they point to that phrase that pops up all the time, evening and morning. And then there's the whole thing with the Hebrew word for day, yom. Apparently, when it's used with a number like 6 days, it almost always refers to a regular day in the Old Testament.
Huh, interesting. See, this is why I love these deep dives, always learning something new.
Me too. And get this, they even bring up the Sabbath, that day of rest.
Oh, right, yeah.
They argue that the commandment to rest on the Sabbath, it wouldn't carry the same weight if those creation days weren't literal 24-hour periods. Like, if God rested after 6 actual days, then we should too, right? Mirroring his pattern.
Makes you think, huh?
It does.
They even address that verse from 2 Peter, the one that says, with the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day.
Oh, yeah. That one always comes up in these discussions.
Right. And, sometimes people use that verse to argue that those creation days could have been much longer periods.
But the author, they're clever. They point out that the same verse says it both ways. A day like 1,000 years like a day. So maybe it's not really about stretching out time, but more about God's eternal nature.
Yeah.
Like time doesn't really constrain him the same way it does us.
That's a good point, which actually kind of brings me to a question I've always had.
Okay, shoot.
If the heavens and the earth were created on that first day, shouldn't that include the sun, moon, and stars? But they don't show up until day 4. What's up with that?
Ah, yeah, that's a classic head-scratcher.
Hmm.
The source material, though, they offer an interesting interpretation. They propose that maybe the heavens, in this context, refers specifically to our solar system, not the eternal dwelling place of God, like heaven with a capital H.
Ah, okay, so maybe those celestial bodies came into being as part of our solar system on day 4.
Precisely. And, you ready for this? They even bring up this super intriguing possibility based on a passage in the book of Job.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
So in this passage, these sons of God are presenting themselves before God, right? And Satan's there too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some scholars, they think these sons of God could be representing other inhabited worlds. Like maybe God created other planets with intelligent life before he even got to Earth.
Whoa, hold on. Are we talking about aliens here?
Uh-huh. Well, maybe. It's definitely food for thought. The source material doesn't present it as like a settled fact or anything. But it does make you wonder, what if Earth wasn't God's first creative act, but his last?
My mind is officially blown. So we've got this meticulously planned creation, the sheer power of God's spoken word, and now we're tossing in the possibility of other worlds. But what does all this tell us about God himself? What kind of being could bring all of this into existence?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Now, the way this book presents it, it paints this picture of a God who is just overflowing with love and this meticulous attention to detail. Like he carefully crafted everything, especially Earth, with humanity in mind. He wanted us to thrive here.
It's like he's this master artist or architect,
Yeah.
just meticulously designing every detail.
Exactly. And while the source material is clear that all members of the Trinity were involved in creation, they really emphasize Christ's role. As the Word, he's the one through whom everything came into being.
Which just adds another layer of depth to it all, right? I mean, to think that Jesus, the same Jesus who walked among us, who ultimately gave his life for us, he was also the one who spoke the universe into existence.
Right. It's mind-boggling.
And then there's the fact that he created knowing what was coming, the crucifixion. He created us despite knowing the pain and heartbreak that was in store for him.
That's a level of love that's hard to wrap your head around. It's like he chose to create us, even though he knew it would ultimately lead to his own suffering.
I mean, talk about commitment. So, we've got this incredible act of creation, but it begs the question, why? What's the ultimate purpose behind it all? Why did God go through all this trouble? Why bother?
Right. Why bring anything into existence at all? Well, this source material, they lay out a few key purposes. But the primary one they highlight is to reveal God's glory. Like creation itself is this grand symphony of praise, showcasing his power, wisdom, and beauty.
Yeah, it's like if you create a masterpiece, you kind of want people to see it and admire it, right? To be blown away by your talent.
Exactly. And in the case of creation, it's not just about admiration, it's about drawing us into a deeper understanding of the Creator. Like every time we witness a sunset or marvel at the complexity of the human body, we're getting a glimpse into the mind and heart of God.
So it's this constant invitation to know him better, to be in awe of his handiwork and to, be drawn closer to him.
Precisely. And this author, they point out that it's not just about passive observation either. God gave humanity dominion over the earth. He wants us to participate, to cultivate life, to build families, to steward his creation.
It's like we're not just spectators, we're actors in this grand cosmic play. We have a part to play, a responsibility to take ownership.
Exactly. Yeah. And all of this, it leads to some pretty profound implications for our lives. I mean,
Mm.
creation isn't just this abstract event that happened way back when. It informs everything. It shapes our identity, our purpose, our values. It's the bedrock.
Okay, now we're talking. I love getting into the nitty-gritty, the so what of it all.
Mhm.
Why should all of this matter to the average person listening right now? Like, why should we care about a story that happened, well, who knows how long ago?
Right. What's the relevance?
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad you asked because this source material, they really highlight how recognizing God as creator, like the sole creator, it's a powerful antidote to idolatry.
Right.
It means we're aligning our worship, our allegiance, solely with him. He's the source of it all, right?
Yeah, no need to go creating idols or putting other things on his level. If he's the ultimate architect of everything, then, well, he deserves all the credit
Yeah,
and all our devotion.
exactly. And this understanding, it really lays the foundation for authentic worship, acknowledging his power, his love, and responding with like genuine gratitude
Yeah.
and obedience. It's all connected.
It's kind of like when someone gives you a really thoughtful gift, right? You appreciate the gift, of course, but it goes beyond that. It's about valuing the giver, their heart behind it.
That's a great way to put it. And it ties back to the Sabbath, too,
Mhm.
something we mentioned earlier. The source material emphasizes that it's this weekly reminder, this intentional pause to reconnect with what truly matters, to remember our dependence on God.
Yeah, to hit pause on the craziness of life and just be.
Exactly, to rest, reflect, commune with the Creator. It's built into the fabric of creation itself. And, this source material goes even deeper, exploring the implications of creation for different areas of life, like marriage, for example.
Oh, yeah, they talk about that. They're pretty clear that marriage is a divine institution, right? Established right at the beginning. It's meant to be this unbreakable bond.
Yeah, and that's a powerful statement in our culture today, isn't it? Where marriage is often seen as, like, disposable, easily broken.
It's a good reminder that it's not just a contract, right? It's a sacred covenant, a reflection of God's original blueprint for relationships.
And speaking of blueprints, creation, it also lays the foundation for how we understand self-worth. The fact that we're made in God's image, it means we have inherent value, dignity. It's not tied to our achievements or failures or even our appearance.
Which is such an important message, especially today, right? When we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us to define ourselves by like our looks, our success, our possessions.
It's a powerful counter-narrative,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure, and it fosters this sense of true fellowship.
Mm.
If we're all God's handiwork, crafted in his image, then we're all part of this one big family, united by our origin, regardless of any differences.
So no room for racism or prejudice or any kind of discrimination. We're all in this together.
That's the beauty of it. And then there's the concept of stewardship, which flows naturally from this understanding of creation. Everything we have, it's a trust. Our bodies, our minds, our talent, even the planet itself. It all belongs to God.
Like we're caretakers, right? Managing this incredible estate for a higher purpose.
Precisely. And we're accountable for how we manage it. The source material, they even talk about the dignity of work itself. Work wasn't a result of the fall, it was part of God's design from the beginning, even in a perfect world.
So even Adam and Eve had their chores in the garden. It's a good reminder that work, when approached with the right attitude, it can be fulfilling, a way to partner with God in caring for his creation.
Absolutely. And speaking of fulfillment, the creation account, it offers this powerful antidote to those feelings of meaninglessness, of despair that can creep into our lives. If we're not just cosmic accidents, but part of a deliberate, loving design, then our lives have inherent purpose, meaning.
It's like we're all characters in this grand story, and our choices, our actions, they actually matter.
That's a great way to think about it. And that story, it's not over. God's creative work, it's ongoing. He's not just sustaining the universe, he's actively redeeming and restoring humanity.
They talk about Christ's miracles, right,
Yes.
as these prime examples of his continued creation, bringing healing and wholeness.
Exactly. And they even use the term recreation through the power of redemption, pointing towards this ultimate renewal described in Revelation.
It's like even though sin messed things up, God's not finished with his masterpiece. He's still working, still bringing about his ultimate purpose.
And that's where the connection between creation and salvation, it becomes even more profound. They're two sides of the same coin, both fueled by God's love and power.
Okay, let's dive into that connection a bit more. What kind of parallels does the source material draw between these two? I'm hooked.
Well, one of the most striking contrasts is the timing. Creation, it happened fast, right? God speaks and boom, it's done, 6 days. But salvation, that's been a much longer, more intricate process, unfolding over millennia.
It's almost like with creation, God was so eager to share this incredible gift, he expedited the process. But with salvation, he's demonstrating this immense patience, drawing as many hearts to himself as possible.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the source material argues that this difference in timing, it's not a contradiction, but a testament to God's love expressed in different ways.
It's like imagine a loving parent who's overjoyed to shower their kids with gifts, but also willing to patiently walk alongside them through life's challenges, guiding them towards maturity.
Perfect analogy. And that brings us to some of the parallels the source material highlights between Christ's role in creation and redemption. Both involve this amazing act of bringing life, right? In creation, it's through his spoken word. In redemption, it's through his sacrifice on the cross and his resurrection.
It's like he's the ultimate life giver, operating on these different levels throughout history.
And both culminate in that powerful declaration, it is finished. In Genesis, after 6 days of creating, God steps back and proclaims his work complete. And on the cross, as Jesus breathes his last, he echoes those same words. It signifies the completion of his atoning sacrifice.
Those words take on a whole new meaning, don't they? It's like they bookend the entire story of humanity, with Christ as the central figure, the author and perfecter of both the beginning and the end, the resolution.
And here's another detail that really struck me. Creation was accomplished by Christ as God, wielding his divine power. But redemption, that was accomplished by Christ as a man, willingly taking on our human limitations, experiencing our suffering, and ultimately paying the price for our sin.
It's not just about raw power then, is it? It's about love, about sacrifice, about this deep identification with humanity.
Exactly. And that's what makes the gospel so powerful. It's not some distant concept. It's intensely personal. This radical act of intervention by the Creator himself, who humbles himself to become one of us, to walk in our shoes and to offer us a way back to him.
It's a story that can, I don't know, move you to tears one minute and fill you with this incredible sense of awe the next. So where does that leave us? How do we take all this, the creation, the implications, the salvation connection, and make it real, something that impacts our everyday lives?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And the source material, they stress that we're not meant to just sit back and observe. We're active participants in this. We're invited to reflect God's image, to care for his world, to partner with him in this ongoing work of redemption.
So it's not enough to just stand back and be amazed by a sunset or the human body. We're called to do something with that sense of wonder.
Exactly. It's about taking that inspiration and turning it into action. If we grasp how big God's creative power is, how deep his love is, it should radically change how we live, how we treat each other, how we interact with the world.
That all sounds good in theory, but what are some practical ways we can actually live this out? How does it translate into concrete actions?
Well, I think it starts with being more aware,
Hmm.
paying attention to those moments when you feel inspired, when you feel that nudge to act, that desire to make a difference.
Like when you see someone in need and you feel that tug on your heart, or when you get this surge of creativity you want to express.
Those are often whispers from the Creator himself,
Oh.
invitations to join him in his work.
So instead of ignoring them or brushing them off, we lean into them, explore them, see where they lead.
Exactly. It might be something as simple as a kind word or as big as a decision to pursue a new path, a commitment to use your gifts to serve others.
It's embracing that adventure of co-creation, letting God work through us in surprising ways.
And I think it also takes humility, remembering that we're not in this alone. We depend on God for everything, literally every breath, every talent, every opportunity,
Surrendering our ego, seeking his guidance, letting him lead the way.
which can be scary, right?
Yeah.
Stepping outside our comfort zones, trusting God with the unknown. But that's where we grow, where we find the joy of partnering with the Creator.
Trading in our limited human perspective for something much bigger, much more awe-inspiring, this conversation has been incredible. And I'm curious, does the source material leave us with any final thought-provoking questions? Something for our listeners to chew on.
You're in luck because they actually end with this amazing question. If God's creative work continues, what does that mean for how we approach our own lives and our responsibility to care for the world around us?
Wow. That's a powerful one. It really challenges us to think deeply about our role in all of this, to be more intentional about reflecting God's creativity.
It's like we're invited to become co-creators with God,
Yeah.
using our unique gifts, our talents, to bring beauty and healing, restoration to the world.
Not just observing or theorizing, but actually jumping in, being part of this ongoing renewal.
And that's where it gets really exciting. It means each of us, no matter how small our contribution might seem, we can be agents of transformation, reflecting God's love in tangible ways.
Our actions, even the little everyday choices, they can ripple outwards and make a real difference.
And this reflecting God's love thing, it takes so many different forms, right? It could be a kind word to a stranger, offering forgiveness, using your artistic talents to bring beauty into the world.
Or maybe it's advocating for justice, caring for the environment, investing in your community.
Exactly. So many ways to partner with God. And that's where you come in, listener.
All right, so how do we take this big idea of continued creation and apply it to our own lives? What does it look like practically?
But I think the first step is just being more aware,
Mm.
paying attention to those moments when you feel that spark, that nudge towards action, that desire to make a difference.
Those times when you see someone in need and your heart goes out to them, or you get that creative idea and you just have to do something with it.
Yeah, those are often like whispers from God, little invitations to join Him.
So we don't ignore them. We lean in, we explore.
Right. It might be a tiny act of kindness or a big life change, maybe a commitment to use your talents to serve others. The point is, you say yes.
Embracing the adventure, letting God work through us.
And it takes humility. We're not in control, not really. We need God for everything,
Surrendering our ego, trusting his guidance.
which can be a little scary sometimes, right? Stepping outside our comfort zone. But that's where we grow. That's where the real joy comes from, that partnership with the Creator.
Trading in our limited human perspective for something much bigger, much more awe-inspiring. This whole conversation, it's really been an eye-opener. I hope our listeners feel the same way.
Me too. It's been great exploring these ideas with you. And as we wrap up this deep dive, just a few final thoughts.
I'm all ears.
First, just remember, God's still creating even when the world feels chaotic. He's shaping, redeeming, and He wants us to be part of it.
Yeah, even when we can't see the big picture, God's still working.
And don't underestimate those small acts of love and service. They might seem insignificant, but they can make a real difference.
A call to action. To step out in faith, trust that God can use us.
And last but not least, you, listener, you are a unique and valuable creation, made in the image of God, full of purpose and potential.
You have meaning, you have value, just because you are.
I hope this deep dive has sparked something in you, a sense of wonder, a deeper understanding of God, and a passion to live out your faith.
And remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions. Until next time, keep diving deep.